Some of the best golfers in the world are using older wedges. And when I say old, I mean quite old. Because let's be honest, when it comes to golf clubs, the one club we're told to refresh, upgrade, essentially every couple of years is definitely the wedges. Yet some of the best golfers in the world are using models that are almost 6 years old. Now, thank you to the guys down at Replay Golf for supplying me these 8 different wedges, varying in ages and conditions. Let's get straight into the top 10 list. Let's see what pros are using what, and potentially what kind of bargains you'll be inspired by to potentially put in your bag. Now, these are in no particular order, but it makes sense to go with the world #1 ranked golfer at the moment, Scotty Scheffler. And not only has he got one SM8 wedge in the bag, he's got 2 of them. Which surprised me at first, but it wasn't uncommon to see some of the best golfers in the world using older styles of Vokey wedges. But in general, I've always thought if you have one particular style of head, brand, year and model, you should stick through that. And I think that's actually good advice. Yet with the Tour Pros, that's just not the case. We're seeing different brands, different years, different models, and Scotty's got 2 SM8 wedges. Potentially is the first dent in the argument. You don't necessarily need the latest and greatest wedges to have a decent approach game. Now, let's not get it twisted before I go any further. Even though some of these pros are using older models, we're talking brand new condition, barely used. But then again, that's a good point. If you're on eBay and you find an old model, a SM6, a SM7, old Mac Daddy Callaway wedge in pretty decent condition, well, let's be honest, you're going to get virtually the same amount of spin as a brand new one. So we started at the top with Scotty. Let's go to the bottom 10. The 9th, 8th and 7th players, all using SM9 wedges, even though some of them aren't Titleist players. Jordan Spieth, Max Homa, Matt Fitzpatrick, Cameron Smith all have SM9s in the bottom end of the bag. And when I was going through my research and looking through the Tour Players golf bag, overwhelming support usage of Titleist Vokey wedges. 2 things to take away from this. Number 1, the SM9 is going to get replaced this year, as some of the other wedges in this list, which I'll tell you about in a bit. So let's be honest, you're going to be able to pick them up a bit cheaper if you do want to get up to an SM9. But the point I'm trying to make is that Titleist Vokey wedges are the standard, arguably the best wedge in the world. So many players trust them, use them, put them in the bag even though they're not sponsored by that particular brand. And whether it's an SM9, SM8, SM7 with decent grooves and overall condition, trust me, you're using some of the best equipment you can, even if you do find a slightly older version in somewhat good condition. A good example of this is world #4 Patrick Cantlay. With a 46 bent up to 47 degrees, SM7 in the bag. And the only reason I can have for him using the SM7, as he does have SM9s in the rest of the set, is that that 47-degree wedge gaps perfectly for him. Not to mention, every wedge head will be weighed individually, swing weighted, make sure that they're perfect for that player. And evidently, the SM7 obviously ticks all the boxes that he needs for his particular wedge game. And that's not the oldest Vokey on this list. Xander Schauffele, 5th best ranked golfer in the world at the moment, has a SM6 as well in the bag. And again, I love brands when they come out. Congratulations to the players winning this week with Titleist or TaylorMade or Callaway or Ping. But very rarely do you ever hear the older clubs that they still have in the bag. And this list is very much testament that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Next is an honourable mention that's not on the top 10 list, and that's Brooks Koepka, runner-up in the Masters, USPGA winner. Has a Cleveland RTX Zip Core wedge in the bag. Came out 3 years ago, and you can pick these up for 50, 60 pounds. And in terms of value for money, for your mid-handicapper, high-handicapper, hell, low-handicapper, to be perfectly honest, I can't really recommend anything better. One of my personal favourites is Victor Hovland's Glide 2.0 wedge at the very bottom of his wedge set. This wedge I highly recommend for beginner golfers because it has so much bounce on the bottom of it. It's going to help with those kind of steep swings. As your traditional Vokeys, especially like the F-grind wedges, are just going to catch and dive into the ground. Again, the Glide 2.0, ridiculous value if you can find it in good condition. And the good news is because ping golf clubs are relatively indestructible, you're more likely to find one in a pretty good condition. The second most favourite wedge in that top 10 player list is the Callaway Jaws Raw wedge, and this is virtually brand new, just come out. But what I do find surprisingly interesting about the newer models of wedges that have come out over the last 3-4 years or so is the notion of rust, raw, making that face rust up. You know what also rusts up very well? Every old wedge back in the day. The good news about the older wedges is that they don't cost £150 to put it in your bag. The last wedge on our set, the MG3 TaylorMade Mill Grind. And I know a lot of you guys will be thinking, Simon, that's a current wedge. I know, but check out the prices of what you can get them for. McIlroy currently has Mill Grind 3 wedges in the bottom end of the bag, but these came out 2 years ago. And if you know anything about TaylorMade, Callaway, Titleist wedge cycles, the SM10 is going to come out this year. The TaylorMade new MG4, which I can only presume, will be coming out this year. Not to mention, a lot of the market knows that's going to be happening. Which means a lot of shops, retailers, even people upgrading to a newer wedge as they've had it 2 years old, are getting rid of their TaylorMade MG3 wedges. This wedge is currently used by one of the best golfers of our game, Rory, and the prices that you can get it for is ridiculous. £70, £80. This only came out a year or so ago, and you can find pretty good condition ones of them, considering the face is well designed to go a bit rusty. You would have thought the best players in the world with unlimited resources, multiple shafts, multiple heads, obviously the brands wanting them to use the newest, latest and greatest, but sometimes you just can't beat something that works for you, whether it's 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. And that even goes for some of the best golfers in our game. Guys, I'd love to hear what old wedges you still have in the bag and that you will never be getting them out until they're worn down to basically dust. Guys, if you like this video, you might like this one up here on the right-hand side. Catch you guys later.